The following program is sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.
Welcome back to Building Wisconsin, Steve. Great to see you again, and thanks for coming on today's show. We're out at your new Madison Training Center. This place is massive, state-of-the-art, and a great place to learn if you want a career in plumbing. And this is only one of two training centers you have in the state, right?
That's correct, Stu. We have a training facility in Milwaukee, and then we also have a relatively new one here in Madison, right on the east side, much bigger. Our goal here is to be able to provide a lot more hands-on training all throughout the apprenticeship, and even in some cases prior to apprenticeship.
Well, on today's show, we want to provide some guidance for anyone who's interested in pursuing a career in plumbing with Plumbers 75. But before we get into that, I know there are some misconceptions out there, and let's tackle those right off the bat. One is that Plumbers 75 doesn't actually hire or place these individuals, and you don't come down to one of your training centers, walk in the door, and just start a plumbing apprenticeship.
No, that's correct. Our apprenticeship is really a partnership. It's between the Plumbers Union and our signatory employers. Employers hire people, they contract with the person to be an apprentice, and that contract is between the employer and the apprentice, and that's who puts them to work, and that's who pays them to do that training.
And that's the key, they put them to work. They actually do the hiring.
Exactly.
You guys just help prepare them for a rewarding career.
That's exactly correct. Our job is we provide the qualified staff and facility to provide that skill training, help that contractor get that return on his investment by hiring that apprentice.
I know another question that you get is that, let's say that I'm really experienced in the trade. Maybe I've worked for a long time out of state with another plumbing contractor. I moved back to Wisconsin. Do I still need to get a specific plumbing license for the state of Wisconsin?
Yes, you do. State licenses do not transfer, and some states don't even require licenses. So in order to get a Wisconsin plumber's license, you have to take our state journeyman's exam, whether you served a similar apprenticeship in another state or not. But one thing's for sure, you have to be able to show comparable training, comparable apprenticeship program, even to be able to write the exam. And that decision is made by the Department of Safety and Professional Services, whether you're qualified to write the exam.
And that might sound like an arduous task, but that's a really good requirement, right? Because plumbers are in charge of our health and safety, right? I mean, they're protecting our most vital natural resource, fresh water.
There's no question, and that journeyman's exam is a minimum requirement to become a plumber licensed in our state, and we're proud of our high standards here in the state of Wisconsin.
What about the other end of the educational or experience spectrum? Let's say I'm in high school or maybe 3-4 years out of it. Do you have any advice for me if I now want to start a career as a plumber?
Number one thing we hear from apprentices when they're completing or on the way through is we didn't expect the school to be that difficult. So you have to come in here with the ability to learn. Certainly math skills help, reading skills help, and now there's a lot more technology involved in the training as well, so some technical savvy is helpful as well, but mainly it's math, reading, and study skills. Have the ability to learn. If you have the ability and the will to learn, we can get you there.
So be a good student when you're in high school, or if you go to a few years of college and find out it's not for you.
Yep.
Just focus on the math, because every trade I've talked to, math seems to be so important.
No question. I can't overemphasize math skills.
Okay, so let's say that I'm still interested. I really am eager to become a plumber. How does the process get started with Plumbers 75?
Well, a number of years ago, we went to an online process. We call it a career portal. You go online, plumbers75.com. You'll take a short survey. It gets you some familiarity with our craft, gets some familiarity with you, real simple questions. And then once you get done with that survey, it also has some resources and advice on how to keep going beyond the survey. So that'll line you up to actually get to your letter of introduction.
You know, that portal, I had a chance to go through and look, and it's really inviting. I mean, you want to know more about the applicant as much as they want to learn more about the rewarding career we're talking about. I also like that there's advice on there when you're talking about preparing for an interview, resume building, getting a job. There's all kinds of information. But the most important thing that I saw there was this LOI, or the letter of introduction. Maybe you can explain why that's so important, because I know it's a state requirement for a lot of what's required.
Yeah, once you get your letter of introduction, then that letter says you have the ability to be hired by an approved training facility in the state of Wisconsin. That would be an employer who trains plumbers and is recognized by the state as qualified to do such. Once you get that, the employer then can hire that person either as a pre-apprentice or an apprentice. But the pre-apprenticeship works out nice, gets the contractor the opportunity to test your soft skills. Do you show up on time? Do you have basic safety skills? Do you have the willingness to want to do this? Last thing we want to do is start an apprenticeship, and it's not a good fit. Apprenticeship is serious business. Those seats, once you start, we can't replace them if somebody drops out or fails out. So we want to make sure we have the highest opportunity for folks to succeed once they get in those classrooms.
Yeah, because the goal of getting the job initially is making a good impression so that you can be entered into the 5-year apprenticeship program. And we're going to learn more about that next. Appreciate you coming on Building Wisconsin.
Thank you, Stu.
Great to see you again, Cory. Thanks for coming on Building Wisconsin. And we were just talking to Steve about getting the apprenticeship process rolling. And what a great facility out here. I know we've walked through it a couple times before, but every time I come here, I'm more and more impressed with the training opportunities that exist out here. How many students are here on an annual basis?
Right now, between Madison and Milwaukee, we have right around 360 apprentices.
Wow, that's a lot. And again, that's a 5-year apprenticeship that they're going through, right?
Correct.
Now, you're backed up by an incredible staff. Tell us a little bit about the instructors, their experience, where they're from.
So I have 2 training coordinators. I have 5 full-time instructors at this time and right around 30 part-time instructors, all of which started exactly where these students did. Some of them are foremen, we have some that are designers, we have some that are project managers in our full-time and part-time staff.
That is a wealth of knowledge. And from what I've learned in the trades is there's no better way of learning than having a mentor who's gone through the ups and downs and all the different situations, teach you the process.
That's one of the cool things about apprenticeship is everyone has been in the exact same shoes as them. So they have all had to go through the apprenticeship and understand from first year to 4th year what they've gone through. They've gone through the journeyman's test and what it takes to pass that. And then the progression of where I want to go from there through a career, you know. So every step of the way they have somebody that can help them, move them along and give them the little added information and tips to keep it positive and keep them encouraged to move forward.
Okay, let's say that I went through the process, I got hired by a training approved contractor. 6 months in, they say, you're great, I want you to get a plumbing apprenticeship. What are the next steps for me in the process?
Okay, there's a couple steps that need to be followed. First, I need to do an application. Next, I need to bring in my high school transcripts or an equivalent showing I've completed that. And then next, I have to academically show I can do the minimums to be a plumber. So I have to take either an ACT test within 5 years that meet the minimums or go and take an AccuPlacer test.
Okay, and you can help people find the locations to do that, but at the end of the day, you need to pass a test to show that you're at a base level that's going to help you succeed before you're admitted here.
Correct. That would be the next step. From there, you go in for a drug test. Okay. And you must pass the drug screening to move forward with the apprenticeship.
And that really makes sense because you're out there working on a job site with a number of different people, a number of different trades. We want everybody to be 110% focused so they can get the job done correctly, but more importantly, everybody on that job site can make it home at night every day.
Yeah, through school and even on a job site, safety is the first thing that's most important in the career.
Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you about too was money. We always talk about one of the advantages of entering an apprenticeship with the trades. You're getting paid to learn, right? Earn while you learn. How much am I making as an apprentice versus the time I graduate?
So as an apprentice, you start out right around 50% scale. You have to meet work requirements, meaning hours that you've worked each year. You also have to meet school requirements. Once you do that, you reach about a 10% increase each year. As a fifth-year student, you would finish off at about 80% of scale before you write your journeyman's, and then you get full benefits.
Sure, you pass that journeyman's test, which is the goal of this whole apprenticeship. That's when you really get to reap the rewards and the fruits of your labor, so to speak.
And prove you know what it takes to be a plumber in this state.
Sure, again, and what a rewarding career it is. Finally, you know, I look around here and, I mean, there's a lot going on here. It's a huge building. It takes an awful lot to build a building like this, maintain it, have the staff. Who pays for it all? Do I, as an apprentice, have to pay a tuition?
Tuition, not really. Every member that's in our local pays to the education fund. So every member right now is paying right around $2 an hour for everybody to learn, whether it's the apprentice in day school or night school or the journey worker for their continuing education. Everyone invests in each other through education to make each other better.
What a great system. I mean, there are no tax dollars, is what you're saying, that come into this learning institute. I mean, it is the members that believe in what they're doing and protecting and training the future generation of plumbers. Well, Cory, I appreciate you coming on today's show. Right now, I'm going to catch up with one of your instructors to learn more about what's being taught during my apprenticeship.
Thank you, Stuart.
Welcome to Building Wisconsin, Tony. Thanks a lot for coming on today's show. And since you're an instructor here at Plumbers 75, we're hoping you can shed some light on the curriculum and what people are learning as they go through a 5-year plumbing apprenticeship here in Wisconsin. So let's start with a general overview. What's the ultimate end goal of a 5-year apprenticeship?
So the 5-year apprenticeship is combining the education that you're learning in the classroom with the hands-on that they're learning with their contractors in the field. I would say that 10% of their apprenticeship is in the classroom where we're learning the whys, the minimums and the maximums with the Wisconsin State Code. The other 90% is going to be in the field with their contractor. So we're creating a mechanic to our trade, you could say, as a plumber in the field. So at the end of the day, we want to prepare them for their journeyman's test that they're going to take with the state.
So after 5 years of learning in the classroom and in the field, I still need to pass a state test?
You still need to pass a state test.
So with the classroom training, are there tests, is there homework, quizzes? I mean, is it important for me to pass, or is it just a matter of showing up?
Every week, there's assignments that are given out for each subject matter. There's tests given out for each subject matter. So a lot of that is just to make sure they're staying in tune with the curriculum, that it's not going in one ear and out the other, right? They're learning something so that we know that they're applying it. So their grade at the end of the semester is based off of their assignments, the quizzes that they take, and then they have a final exam in each subject matter.
Okay, so is it important to reach a certain level? I mean, do I have to pass a course?
Yes, there is a requirement that they have to pass 75% in order to move on to the next semester. If they don't pass the 75% in one or two subject matters, they just have to come back the next semester just to repeat that one subject.
Does that happen very often, that somebody doesn't pass?
It's very common. We have different levels of learning. So sometimes it takes people a little bit longer. We try not to discourage them if they have to come back and repeat. A lot of times it's beneficial that you'll see them progress further as they start picking it up.
Best advice for somebody, do well in math in high school?
Do well in math in high school. That high school math level is going to carry through your entire trade. You use math and plumbing every day.
So at the end of the day, to quickly review, over the 5 years, you're going to take the first couple of years, you're going to spend 1 day a week in the classroom. You said that was paid training. Is there also unpaid training?
There is also unpaid training. So out of the 5-year apprenticeship, they're going to be going to night classes, which are unpaid, where there's a lot more hands-on throughout their entire apprenticeship. So that unpaid related training, that might be at the same time where they have day school. So they might come to school paid, and then they might have to stay and do an unpaid class at night.
Oh, so this is another classroom. Wow, a lot different than I was a student, that's for sure. Pretty high tech. I mean, the industry is really evolving, and as I understand, it's more than just sitting at a desk when you come here. There's also labs as well where the apprentices learn?
Yep, very specific labs. And these labs, they're considered our hands-on. Working in a backflow lab with the actual assemblies and testing, that's a good hands-on portion where they're actually working with it. We also have our MedGas labs. There's a lot of certifications that they can add towards the end of their apprenticeship that'll just better who they are. The way I see it is these labs and all the certifications that they get, that's the beginning steps to their resume for their plumbing career.
And that continuing education after your apprenticeship, you can really get specialized.
Correct.
So give me an example of what the apprentices are learning over their apprenticeship here.
Sure. So first semester drawing, they learn how to hand draw. They learn how to measure. They learn how to use the architectural scale and an isometric triangle to draw isometrically. So this is a plan view of what they'll see the first semester. They have to take their measurements and hand draw it. After first semester, they get into AutoCAD, which they're now going to be brought into the lab. This is going to be what an isometric drawing of those two fixtures would look like. So that's the two-dimensional. Once they move on to third semester, they start getting into Revit. So Revit is actually taking those lined two-dimensional drawings and creating a three-dimensional where they're actually seeing pipe and fittings. They're actually changing different fittings for certain radiuses. The whole point of this is to get to a full model, so what they're going to be seeing when they're out working in the field. So this is a typical example of what they might see out in the field. If they're working on a job, you know, if they're just doing the underground portion, they have to realize this whole model is already drawn. They could actually get into the model. They could take this all the way down to their underground plumbing if that's what their questions are or if that's what they're piping. And now they can actually fly through that model and see what piping is done. It coordinates what the other trades are doing on the job, who's going in first, so that there's no rework on the site and facility. So
this is really amazing. So over the 5 semesters, ultimately, this is what I'm going to have a good understanding of. And as I just said, math is so important. Even when it comes to the AutoCAD or the Revit, everything builds upon itself with the curriculum here.
Correct. Knowing proper measurement and pitch, a lot of that stuff is all calculated into these models. It's also good for change orders, documenting additional work. Same thing for as-built drawings. If you get to a job and stuff changes, they have the access to be able to draw something in and get it back to the BIM department so they can collaborate and coordinate it in their model smoothly.
Yeah, and the electrician in this case, they have the same Revit drawing, so they look at it and they see like, oh, hey, I better not put it in first. We better have the plumbers finish their job, then we come in.
Right, everybody works off the same model.
So this isn't necessarily semester 1, but over 5 semesters, this is where you're going to end up.
This is where their career is taking them. This is what's the standard a lot of times in the field nowadays.
Oh, this is what I'm talking about. I love all the space out here at the training center. And here's a mock-up where the students can learn. I mean, so you have classroom setting, and this is a great example of one of your hands-on labs.
Great example for hands-on labs. So a lot of the stuff that they're learning in the code book, if they don't have a visual, a lot of times it's hard for them to comprehend what they're putting together or what mistakes they're making. So here we have cages where they can actually put together some of the vent systems that they don't understand so that they see them. And as you see, a lot of this stuff has already been torn out. So it's not like we put a code compliant system there and just leave it for class after class to view. They're actually coming out here, they're actually putting fittings and pipe together, making sure it's pitched properly, and then when they're done, it's removed for the next class to have the same opportunity.
I gotta believe this is one of the favorite aspects for any apprentice here, because being able to work hands-on, make those mistakes like you said, and be corrected, you're gonna remember it when you're out in the field.
Right. We actually encourage the people to pipe it and have these mistakes so that we can talk about what they did so that they have that understanding, so that's not mimicked in the field where it might be costly to the contractor.
Sure. Another great example of a lab here. And you know, you keep mentioning the Wisconsin Plumbing Code Book. I mean, is that really, at the end of 5 years, that's what the test is on to learn? I mean, that's gotta be an intense test, because here's the plumbing code book, and look at all this stuff here. I mean, that's a lot.
It's not just so much the content, it's how to read it. The code book is divided up into a number of different sections, right? So we're gonna have sections just on definitions, we're gonna have sections on sanitary drains, vents. A lot of it is minimums and maximums that we want them to learn and understand, how to size piping based off of load value on a fixture versus a branch versus an entire drain itself.
Do most of the apprentices, when they show up day one, are they intimidated by this? Because I certainly am after looking at it.
Well, we don't go through it as a whole. It's broken up into the 20 lessons that they have during day school. So breaking it up into 5 lessons each semester is more of a handle, and then they don't just stop there. The next semester we learn the next 5 lessons, plus we review. So they're constantly going through it. By the time they get done with their apprenticeship, they've already gone through that multiple times. It just becomes more second nature, right?
And so am I hearing you correctly that you want to make them comfortable with it, not necessarily memorize it, but know where to find everything that they need to?
Know where to find it. That's the key thing. If they have a question on venting systems, I don't want them to spend minutes paging through the drain portion. Like, know where those sections are. It's more efficient for them when they're taking their journeyman's test. It is a timed test, so they don't have the whole time period to just flip through the code book. They should have some general knowledge and understanding of the code.
And in the big scope of things, that relates well to the real world, because if you're out on site, you might not know everything. I mean, nobody does,
Right.
but you want to know where to find it as expeditiously as possible so that you can stay on time and on budget.
Right, and that's what it's all about. Efficiency, well-versed. We're looking at tables so that we know how to size the loads that are on individual drains or stacks themselves. So it starts off with the basics, and then it just compiles semester after semester.
And know the why.
Know the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why do we have a license? Our end goal is to protect the health of the nation, and we have to know the why behind that.
Wow, this training center just goes on and on with training opportunities. And what are we looking at in this lab?
So in this lab here, we use it for training for soldering and brazing, different types of piping connections. So we use this not only for training the apprentices to solder or to braze, it's also used for our med gas certifications. With medical gas, every 6 months you have to do a rebraze, so there's a lot of rebrazing. It's nice that this lab, along with our welding lab, we have multiple booths for one-on-one training with the instructor.
And that one-on-one training, that's being done by your experienced instructors here, right? They're experienced plumbers, I assume?
Yes, all our instructors are experienced, licensed plumbers. Some have more specialties, like a lot of our welding instructors, they've done a lot of welding in the field. Not only is it just through a night school class, but there's certifications that they can get outside of that, especially if there's jobs that require more welding, they can get their certs that they need. So we have very well certified instructors that teach all aspects of our trade. And that's what we're looking for with our program, right? An all-around experience. It's not just residential plumbing that we're training to be a plumber. It's not just commercial or service, right? It's an all-around, well-rounded plumber. That's who you're going to want servicing your house or your building or your facility.
You know, what I'm hearing is, sure, you're preparing them to pass the Wisconsin plumbing test to become a licensed plumber in our state, but you're doing much more than that. You're preparing them for real-world professions out there. I got to believe your contractors love the fact that you get somebody who is experienced already in so many different aspects. And again, like you said, residential, commercial, industrial, municipal, they're going to at least have some sort of idea what they're going to encounter and a knowledge of how to find answers to their questions in the code book when they leave here with their 5-year apprenticeship.
Even with our welding lab, a lot of times you hear, why are people welding? There's a lot of types of piping materials that have changed over the years. Water piping, you see a lot more with stainless because of cost-wise. So you have to be ahead of that.
And you know, I love to say on our show, we're fortunate here in our state of Wisconsin to have highly skilled, highly trained individuals in the trades. Plumbing is no exception. And as a matter of fact, as I understand it, if I'm a plumber in a different state, that doesn't mean I can just come here and start plumbing, right?
Even if you have a license in a different state, you still have to take the Wisconsin Plumbing Code test and pass it in order to do plumbing here in Wisconsin.
And that's reassuring to me as a resident here, because you're the guardians of the gate. You're responsible for protecting the health and safety of our greatest natural resource, that's fresh water. So thank you so much for coming on, giving us an insight to the 5-year plumbing apprenticeship in Wisconsin.
Sounds good, Stu.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.